Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel and I am knitting. Not right now, but most of the time, and I have been knitting, so I'm going to tell you all about it. Today's video is episode 26 of my weekly podcast series, which is a series where I gab to you about my project updates, things I'm thinking about in terms of my making journey or progress, or I don't know, whatever I'm getting up to. Saying journey makes me feel like I'm on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and I'm not. I can be a little bit more intentional and specific with the words I'm using, and I don't have to use journey as a fill-in for literally any word in existence. Anyway, I talked to you about what I've been working on, any yarn or other fiber-related acquisitions I may have received over the course of the last week, things I might want to be casting on, projects I've finished, projects I'm hating, projects I'm loving, yada yada yada. So if that sounds interesting, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future podcast episodes. So let's get into it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that I need to update you on, and also hardly anything I have to update you on all at the same time. It's an interesting dichotomy. So let's start with project updates. The first project that I have to update you on is my California sweater. And I'll tell you, it's done, save for needing to weave in the ends and blocking it. So really it's not done, but it's off the needles. So I thought I would show you what it looks like, but Leslie does this cool thing in her podcasts where she snaps her fingers and then all of a sudden the garment that she's finished is on her body. She's wearing it, just the magic of movie editing. So I figured, since this is Leslie's design that I'm telling you about, why don't I try and emulate Leslie with a little bit of fun editing? I'll snap my fingers and then I will have the California sweater on. So let's give this a go. Oh, sorry, that's not where I want to be. Let me try again. It worked! Here I am, right where I wanted to be. All right, so let's talk about the California sweater. When I updated you last week, it was in the freezer because I needed to frog my attempt at the sleeves. The sleeve decrease rate was tweaked a bit, so the sleeves that were on the body needed to be taken off the body so I could knit the new version of the sleeves, which is what you see here now. Yay, excellent. This is off my needles. I'm very, very happy with it. In fact, after it was cast off, I put it back in the freezer because there was a little bit more tweaking that I wanted to do on this sweater. I wanted to add some length to the neckband. Leslie cast on a second sample during our testing time together, which is ongoing, but I'm done testing because I'm finished with this. I still have to finish the feedback form. I'm getting away from the point. The point is, on Leslie's second sample, she made a bit of a thicker neckband, and I really liked the look of that, so I wanted to emulate that and add length to my neckband. So after I finished these sleeves, I put it back in the freezer, and after it was in the freezer for a little bit, I unpicked the sewn bind off. And when I say sewn bind off, I don't mean like a tubular bind off or an Italian bind off. I mean that the neckband is knit twice as high as you want it to sit on your neck, and then you fold it over in on itself and you sew the cast off edge down to the inside of the neckband. So that's what I mean by sewn neckbands. It's sewn down, not sewn as a bind off. Anyway, I unpicked that and then I added 6 rows of ribbing and then folded it down and sewed it down. Now, I kind of wish I had gone a few rows more than just the 6 rows that I added. I think just a teensy bit thicker of a neckband I would have liked, but I'm super happy with this neckband, and my wish for a thicker neckband does not outweigh my desire to keep this as a finished object and be done with it. I'm really happy with it, but I don't want to keep knitting on it. I want to move forward to some other projects. Also, I couldn't add length to this if I wanted because all of the yarn that I had for this sweater is now gone. It's used up, which I'll tell you about shortly. But even if I wanted to, I don't have yarn to do that. Well, I say that, but if I were to add length, whatever I knit would be on the inside of the neckband, so it would be hidden, but we're not going to do that. The ends are woven in on this sweater. If you had a keen eye, when I was standing back there with that snapping snafu, there were some ends hanging off of this sweater, but guess what? My mic died after 20 minutes of me going on and on and on about my knitting this last week, so through the magic of movie editing and spending some time to charge my microphone, I wove in all the ends on this sweater. So now it really just needs a block and then it's done. So did I say this already? I don't know. If I haven't, this is not blocked. So now that we're on that topic, let me show you what this looks on my body. I'm going way too fast and messing up all my words, but I'm going to show you what this looks like on. And keep in mind, it's not blocked, but you can get an idea for the fit. All right, that's enough of that. So the California sweater, my overall thoughts and impressions are that I am so thrilled. I'm so pleased with this garment. It's going to get a ton of wear. And I know that because I love my lento, particularly my most recent lento. I've made a blue lento, and then when I made a pinkish purple lento, I sized down, and I really love the fit of my most recent lento, which is that pinkish purplish one. And I wore it on my Shetland trip, and I just love it. It's gonna get a lot of wear. I haven't had the opportunity to wear it too much since I finished it, aside from my Scotland trip, because it's the summertime and I live in South Louisiana. But I know that I'll get a lot of wear out of that lento, and likewise a lot of wear out of the California sweater because they're knit with similar gauge and similar fabric, being that each calls for one strand of fingering weight with one strand of lace weight held together. Now, this is also going to be a really great transitional piece because the fabric is so airy and so drapey and so lightweight because it's a thin fabric knit on thick or large needles. But because of the yarn that it's called for, either a mohair lace weight or a Surrey lace weight, so a lace weight that has halo, that has dimension, that has little fiber tendrils waiting to grab onto whatever it touches, it holds in warmth incredibly well for a lightweight fabric. So that's why I say this will be a great transitional piece as the weather gets colder. Hopefully we get to experience some cold weather down here in South Louisiana, but if not, I'll just make sure that I make the most of this on the upcoming Ireland trip. So definitely going to bring this with me. I'm expecting that Leslie is planning to bring her California sweater. I think she said so. And even if she didn't, it just makes sense. Leslie, you've got to bring your California sweater. Hello. And then I think at least one other person who's going to Ireland with us is testing the California sweater too. So maybe if they finish in time, they can bring their finished California sweater and we can have like a fun little photo op. So I think that would be fun, but definitely going to bring this along with me. A little note about the yarn. If you're not familiar, I'm using Clockwork Fiber Company yarn. It's so dreamy. I'm using one strand of the Boardwalk Sock Base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend, 463 yards per 100 grams, 4-ply. It's a beautiful, beautiful base. And then with one strand of Clockwork Fiber Co. Chime Surrey, which is a Surrey, I believe Surrey silk base. And Leslie told Sam that she should make kits of this specific color that I knit mine up in. The fingering weight I used is called Fairy Thimbles, and the Surrey I used didn't have a name, so I'm assuming it's from a one-of-a-kind batch, but hopefully Sam can recreate this to make kits. She seemed like she was on board, but no concrete plans have been made to have kits for the California sweater, but I just think kits for this specific color need to be out there in the world. It's the most perfect periwinkle, blue purple, blurple, blue leaning purple, however you want to call it. The fingering weight base, the superwash merino base, it was more like purple, pinkish purple leaning, and then the suri that I used was more blue leaning purple. So together they just make this beautiful, beautiful fabric that I'm so happy with. So I definitely recommend keeping an eye out for this pattern. Again, it's the California sweater designed by Leslie of Knit California, and I just think it's a must knit. A great transitional piece. Like I said, it knits up really quickly, so if you want a super gratifying knit that is not necessarily the biggest time commitment, definitely recommend the California sweater. Keep your eye out, you won't be sorry. So with that said, I'm getting a little warm in this sweater. Like I said, even though it's lightweight, it does hold on to that warmth quite well. So let me try snapping one more time so I can get out of this transitional piece and transition to the next knit I want to talk to you about. Okay, somehow I ended up in an even warmer sweater. Funny how that happens. And I have suri in my mouth. I'm wearing my newest cast off. This is the Doppio. Guess what? I don't know if I like this sweater, but we have a lot to talk about with it. You may be looking at this and thinking, wow, this is a beautiful sweater, a faded piece. Rachel, you've outdone yourself. And to that I say, no, I don't agree with you. But I have a lot of feelings to unpack. Before I unpack them, I want to go over some ground rules. You may agree with me that this is not the most beautiful sweater. Please don't comment that and pile on to my already building feelings of insecurity around this sweater. I'm figuring out how I feel about this sweater, not only in and of itself, but also wearing it. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I hate it. I don't know if I'm somewhere in between. I'm wading through the mud of decision, not decision, but wading through the mud of discerning. No, discerning is not a word. Discerning. I'm wading through the mud of discernment to figure out how I feel about this. And I would love to be able to come to that conclusion on my own. So please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments as always, but just keep in mind that I'm an impressionable, insecure person in terms of this sweater, and I would love to reach my own conclusions and feel my own feelings about this without taking on the burden of other people's conclusions or feelings, if that makes sense. So with that said, let me tell you a little bit about the Doppio, but first let's look at what it looks like on my body. All right, that's enough. So that's how it looks. And as you can see, it is not a seamless fade. Last week I was telling you about perhaps planning to cast it on, and here we are 1 week later and it's a finished object. That's right, it was on my needles for 7 days, which is absurd. It's heinous. There's no reason that should be real, but here we are. It is. By Friday, well, I cast on Monday of last week. By Friday night, I hit sleeve separation. And then on Saturday, I thought, what if I finish this over Labor Day weekend? And so then I did, and by Sunday evening, I cast it off. So excellent, wonderful, great. However, like I said, I may hate this garment. I haven't decided yet. When I originally was thinking of making this Doppio with the yarn that I showed you last week, I had in my mind that I was going to have a seamless fade, starting with the darkest colors around my neck and shoulders and ending with the lightest colors at the bottom. That's not how it happened. This is more of a color block fade, if that makes sense, where the separation between different colors is not blurred, it's not gradual, sometimes it's very stark. Now, the Doppio is interesting. There's a few different ways that you can knit this, but the main way that it's called for in the pattern, or that it's described in the pattern, is that you use 2 strands of fingering weight and 1 strand of lace weight held simultaneously. So unless you're using all 3 strands that are the same colorway, it's likely that your yarn combination is going to cause some marling, maybe some color shifting, depending on the yarn, if it's variegated or self-striping maybe. So there's like endless possibilities in what your finished fabric might look like depending on the different yarn combinations you may come up with. So every Doppio looks a little different, which is really cool. Now, mine is not what I envisioned. Like I said, I envisioned a seamless fade, but I tried to fade between this portion and this portion, and I so quickly realized that the yarn management to do that would break me. It would sever any connection I had to warm, fuzzy feelings about knitting, and it would create a monster out of this craft for me. So I quickly decided I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself through that. I'm going to give myself permission to just knit. And what comes of this, comes of it, that's fine. So what that ended up being, and I'll stand up and point to these sections as I'm describing them so you can see, so prepare for me to be the headless horseman or whatever as I describe this sweater to you. So all throughout this sweater, I have 3 skeins of hedgehog fiber, starting with the darkest skein here, the middle skein here, and the lightest skein here. I also have multiple colors of suri. So I have a dark purple suri here. I have the blue leaning purple that I used for the California sweater here in this midsection, which is like, sorry. And then down here, I have the lightest color suri, which I have a little bit left over of. This is Cousins from Doppio Yarn Co. Now also, besides the shifting of the suri, I also have shifting in the hedgehog fiber skeins. So again, from here up, between my hands here is the first skein of hedgehog, and then between my hands here is the second skein, and then the third skein makes up a tiny bit at the bottom, and you can also see that represented on the sleeves. Now, what about the third strand, or the second strand of fingering weight? Well, I have a certain strand of fingering weight here. I have a certain strand of fingering weight here. And I have a certain strand of fingering weight here, or thereabouts, okay? So every color block section has its foot in the door of the last color block section or the next color block section. Okay, so even though there's 2 different suris here, there's 1 hedgehog fiber skein. Even though there's 2 fingering weight skeins here, there's 1 hedgehog fiber skein, if that makes sense. So while it is color blocking, it's also just like a real muddy medley of these yarns playing together. And when I initially was thinking that I would do a seamless fade, I did try to fade this top section with this next section when I was first knitting it. And initially I thought I'll fade the lace weights. I'll just start the fade by incorporating the next lace weight skein, but I quickly learned that that's not the way to go, because whatever lace weight you're using, and I'd been told this before, but I couldn't conceptualize it until actually doing it, but whatever lace weight skein you're using is really what determines the overall tone of that section. So for instance, this is a dark purple lace weight, and then this is my blue leaning purple for my California sweater lace weight. Now, both really influence the overall tone and color of the section they're used in, because the lace weight has the halo, it has those fibers that are giving it 3-dimensionality, whereas the 2 fingering weight skeins being held with that lace weight aren't sticking out, they're not making that dimension. So really the lace weight you choose is what is a prominent color. So then I frogged that back. I separated those 3 separate strands to get the lace weight out, and then I started fading in the second fingering weight strand. So I don't know, this transition between these 2 sections is certainly the most blended of all the transitions in the sweater, but it's not even coming close to what I initially envisioned. It's not gradual, it's not seamless, it's very abrupt, as it are the other color sections throughout the sweater. So I just don't know. I just don't know. And I don't know if that's because it's different than what I originally envisioned, or just because it's flat out ugly. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm giving myself permission to sleep on it for a while. Originally, I was thinking that I would bring this with me to Ireland because a lot of it is Ireland souvenir yarn. All of the Hedgehog Fibers yarn is from my last trip to Ireland. The second fingering weight strand and the Surrey strand from this dark purple section are also souvenir skeins from Ireland, the leftovers that I have left after I used those skeins to make an Oslo hat mohair edition. So anyway, all that to say, there's a lot of Ireland souvenir yarn in here. So I thought, okay, great, I'll wear this going back to Ireland. But I have to decide if I feel good in this. Ultimately, it's not about whether or not it's ugly. It's about whether or not I feel good when I'm wearing this. And I just don't know if I feel good or not. And I think I need to try this on like with an outfit that I would realistically wear this with, when I feel cute, when I feel good about myself, and then make a decision and determine what the future of this sweater will be. I will not be frogging this sweater. Absolutely not. What a nightmare, because there are so many sections where I ran out of one fingering weight yarn, so I joined in another, but the other two strands were not running out, whatever. And there's other sections where all three strands ran out, or two strands ran out, or just, you know, the weaving in of the ends, the yarn management, even just in and of itself, holding three strands together without saying anything of fading. That took a lot of yarn management, and it means that the fabric is very complicated. So frogging this to harvest the yarn is not something I'm interested in. Now, what's going to happen to this sweater if I decide I hate it, but I'm not going to frog it and harvest the yarn? Well, I'm thinking that this could be potentially a sweater that I use to hang out around the house in. Now, I have had that suggested to me before with other sweaters that I've mentioned I wasn't happy with the final result. And I've always bristled at those comments. I've always thought, absolutely not. I worked hard on this. I want to wear it in my everyday life. I don't want it to be just, I don't know, put away in a corner and only wearing in my house. Like, that seems like such a waste. But for whatever reason, I don't feel that way about this sweater. If this just becomes a comfy, cozy sweater I wear around the house, that's okay with me. So I don't know what the difference is. I don't know why I don't like that idea for some makes, but I'm okay with it with others, like this one. I don't know, and maybe I'll explore that one day, but I'm not really interested in that right now. Just telling you, that's an option. One great thing about this, though, is that I don't have much yarn left over. I mentioned that I don't have the yarn for my California sweater if I wanted to make the neckline bigger. Couldn't do that if I wanted to, because all of the leftover yarn of both the fingering weight yarn and the lace weight yarn that I used in the California sweater, they're all in this Doppio. This is all the yarn that I have left over from 3 skeins of Hedgehog Fibers fingering weight yarn, and then from the various other fingering weight leftovers and Surrey leftovers that I used for this sweater. So that's pretty good. It feels good to have so much yarn from my stash put into a garment, whether or not this is a garment that I end up loving. But I learned some things throughout this process. Yes, I finished this in a week. This was only on my needles for 7 days. But at what cost? Like, that's great, but is it great if it's not a garment that I love? Probably not. So it's just a reminder, like, slow fashion is slow for a reason, and that's okay. I don't need to blaze through. Now, of course, it does feel good to say I knit a sweater in 7 days. I'm not mad about that. I may do that again. But that's not the only thing that matters. That's not the only good thing. Okay? I would much have rathered spent more time and have this be a piece that I love, no questions asked. But I would not do a faded Doppio again. I think if I do another Doppio, and in fact, that's something I want to talk to you about, I would not pick scraps to do this, even though all of my scraps looked good together. Like, they were the same color scheme, same color family. Last week I told you, I just see this out of the corner of my eye, so I might as well tell you. Last week I told you I was thinking of holding this as one of the fingering weight strands, but I started it and I hated how it looked. The white was the focus when I wanted the purple to be the focus. So anyway, I didn't use this cone of white yarn. But if I do another Doppio in my future, which I do want to do, I realize I have a sweater quantity from last year, last summer, from the favorites collection from Treehouse Knits. I have the stories that really mattered here on Dove DK, and then I also have Surrey. So instead of holding 2 strands of fingering together, I could just hold 1 strand of DK and 1 strand of Surrey, and I think that would make a really lovely Doppio, and it would eliminate a lot of the reasons I'm unhappy, potentially unhappy, with this Doppio. I love the fit of this Doppio. I'm not mad at the fit. I think that it's comfortable. The fabric is really thick and I'm getting kind of warm. I need to take this off soon. But I know that on a cold day, this will be a perfect sweater. I just don't know if I like the color and the color placement and the color blocking. So the fit is great. I would definitely make this sweater again. I would just make different yarn choices. Now, you may have noticed that these sleeve ends are dangling off. It's not a fashion choice. I'm just not sure if the sleeves are long enough. I'll have to wait till after blocking to see if they grow, and if they don't, I may undo the ribbing and add stockinette length, reknit the ribbing and the bind off. So I'm not weaving in these 2 sleeve ends until after I block it and determine how I feel about the sleeve length. Which brings me, or reminds me, I should tell you also in terms of yarn management, when I was knitting this, I had the sleeve stitches on my needles. I also had 1 sleeve stitches on the needles at all times, and the other sleeve was on hollow silicone tubing. So I would knit like 10 or 15 stitches of the body, and then I would put stitch stoppers on those needles, and then I would knit the same amount of rows for 1 sleeve, and then I would go to the next sleeve. So that way I was making sure that I wouldn't run out of yarn. I didn't want to just knit all the way down the body and then still have the sleeves to do, but have run out of whatever color from using it all up on the body. So I had to knit the sleeves and the body simultaneously in order to make sure the color blocks were cohesive. They're not a perfect match. They're not perfectly lined up, but it's certainly better than if I totally ran out of a color on the body and just didn't have it left over for the sleeves. This also meant that I picked up the neckband before I was done with this section with the dark purple to make sure that the neckband matched the color combination that I was using at the top of the yoke or the raglan. Yeah, but I'll talk more about the Doppio in an FO diary one day. I kind of feel like I should make another one that I'm super happy with to showcase the difference between a faded version or an attempted faded version and then just a standard version. But you know how it goes. Plans change all the time. So who knows if this sweater quantity will become a Doppio. It may become something else. I don't know. But that is something that I'm thinking about now. Okay, so that's the last I have for project updates. Let me get out of this sweater before I really overheat, and then I'll keep chatting to you about some cast on plans. So how about we go one more snap? All right, I feel a lot better without that sweater on me. But that's all for project updates. I really only worked on the California sweater and the Doppio this past week, which makes sense because the Doppio was a huge time commitment and took a lot of my focus. That's just the way it goes if you're going to finish an entire sweater in 7 days. So now I want to talk to you about cast on plans. I already mentioned that I have my sights set on another Doppio, but of course that could change. Who knows? But another cast on plan I have for you is for my Dewdrops cowl. Testing has started for my Dewdrops cowl, which is nuts because last podcast episode I said, I don't know, it was all kind of like hypothetical, things weren't set in stone yet, but then after I filmed the podcast last week on Monday, I was like, I want to send out the test call. So all throughout the course of last week, the test call went out. The pattern was tech edited. I selected testers. I started the test. The official start date was yesterday. So some people have already completed, like Ella completed a headband before the test even officially started. We have another headband that was completed, and people are working away on their other things. I don't think everyone has started. That's fine. I plan to test along with my testers, and I haven't started either. But I do plan to make the DK weight version of my Dewdrops cowl in this skein of Hedgehog Yarn Tweedy. This is in the colorway Lullaby, and Tweedy is a very cool base. If you're not familiar, this is a DK weight base from Hedgehog Fibers, and it's made in partnership with donations that Hedgehog Fibers receives of yarn waste. So I've donated to this, and in exchange you can get a coupon code depending on the overall weight of the scraps that you donate. But this is made up of 50% Falkland merino wool, 37.5% recycled wool, and 12.5% Hedgehog Fibers thread waste. So how that works is you can ship or drop off, if you're local to Hedgehog Fibers, your yarn scraps. So I keep mine collected, and I'm always adding to this bag. But once they receive your yarn scraps and weigh them, they will email you, or if you're there in person, give you a discount code that is commensurate with the weight of yarn scraps you've donated. So they have a threshold for a 10% coupon, a 20% coupon, and a 30% coupon. But anyway, that yarn waste, those yarn scraps, are then turned into these little Tweedy neps on the Tweedy base. So no skein of Tweedy is the same because they're all different in terms of the color and I guess the percentage, the quantity of yarn scraps that are incorporated in the form of these little Tweedy yarn waste neps. So it makes for a really fun base that's kind of like a rainbow tweed. You can see that this one has blues and pinks, and down here we've got yellows. So anyway, all that to say, I want to work this up into the DK weight version of my cowl pattern so I can keep riding this wave of using up souvenir yarn I bought last year in Ireland to help me prepare to buy more souvenir yarn this October. So that's a cast on plan. I'm also wondering what sweater I should cast on because I still have a month to play around with knitting before it's time to go to Ireland. And I do think that I could complete another sweater. Certainly not in 7 days like I did the Doppio, but I could definitely complete a different sweater. I'm thinking maybe the Felix cardigan. This was recently purchased for me as a gift on Ravelry. It was on my Ravelry wish list, so thank you so much for that pattern to the person who gifted that to me. I have a sweater quantity of Clockwork Fiber Co. here on my yarn wall that I have set aside for it. So I'm thinking maybe I'll cast that on. Or I'm still thinking maybe casting on a field day cardigan in the carpet colorway so I can match my mom on the Ireland trip. So I'll probably decide that in the next few days. I'm not 100% sold on either one, so maybe a secret third option that hasn't revealed itself to me yet will become the clear winner, and I'll just immediately cast on like I did last week with the Doppio. But that's what I'm thinking for cast on plans. The next section of the podcast that I'll move into is acquisitions because I don't have a spin diary yet again. And well, let me talk to you about the spin diary for a minute, actually. I haven't been spinning because I know that my next spin I need to film pretty much in its entirety, and by that I mean I need to film the fiber prep, I need to film the spinning, I need to film the plying, I need to film the winding it on the nitty knotty, and then I need to film knitting with my homespun yarn to make some deliverables for Kromsky. And my yarn room, you can't see like in its entirety, but maybe glimpses in this video or in prior podcast episodes or on Instagram, you may have seen in the background that there's cardboard boxes, there's a lot of packaging, and that's because I am full to the brim in this craft room with swag for goodie bags for the Ireland trip. And there's just like, sometimes it feels like there's not room to breathe. And of course, I'm not complaining, I'm just telling you, logistically, it's difficult to get my spinning wheel out from the corner and just have something else take up space in the room. So I'm really, really looking forward to Ireland for a lot of reasons, but one of them is certainly to have my craft room back, to get all of this swag out of my house and into the hands of the people who are joining me in Ireland. If you're watching and you are going to be with me in Ireland, just get ready. You're not ready, but get ready, because the goodie bags this year are so good. Yeah, but I'm sick of having all this good stuff in my house. I want it in your house, not my house. But yeah, so that's the reason I haven't been spinning, but I need to get on it. So maybe this week it'll happen. Who knows? We'll see. So there's the unofficial spin diary update for you. Next, let's talk about acquisitions. I got an exciting package this week. Pre-order yarn. I haven't ordered from a pre-order in a while, but I just couldn't resist from the Long Dog Yarn Our Yarn Meets Death collection, which is inspired by Our Flag Meets Death, a prematurely canceled show on HBO Max, or just Max, as it's called now. So let me open this up and I'll show you what I got. Okay, so first of all, I got one skein of this Luxe lace base, and I'm really, really excited about this base. It is 53% Super Baby Alpaca, 34% silk, and 13% cashmere. 438 yards per 100 grams. Now, this is a base that I felt in person during the Rose City Yarn Crawl. A different dyer had it in a trunk show at Starlight Knitting Society. I felt this base, it was like so dreamy, so soft, so to die for. But I don't know, I wished that there were 3 of them, because at the time I was thinking I want to make a lento, but they only had one of that skein that I really fell in love with at Starlight Knitting Society. So clear heads prevailed and I left that skein for someone else to enjoy. I did not buy it. But then when Brandy said that she was stocking that same base for her next collection, I was so excited. So I got this one skein in the colorway Turn Poison into Positivity. It's a beautiful, beautiful, like a berry purple. So I was thinking that I would hold this with a strand of fingering weight to make a hat or a scarf or some other accessory. But I'm really excited about that. And then I also got 4 skeins of the same color, Turn Poison into Positivity, except this was on her cotton fingering base, which is 50% superwash merino and 50% Pima cotton, and it's 437 yards per 100 grams. I've never really knit with cotton, well, a couple times, but I don't think I have any finished garments that I'm happy with or that are, you know, in rotation. I don't think I've ever finished a garment knitting with a cotton blend. But I just loved how this colorway looked on the cotton merino. So again, it's the same colorway across these 2 different bases, but on the cotton merino, it just looks like this beautiful dusty lilac. Oh, I just loved how it looked. So I was thinking that I would make a tee, because I do live in South Louisiana, so I should be using more natural fibers like cotton or bamboo or linen, so I can have the full use of my knits even in the summer months. But I've just never really pulled the trigger on that because, as I've said before, like many, I fear what I don't understand. And I don't understand how cotton works. Like, I don't understand how it behaves. Will it grow a lot with blocking? Will it shrink with blocking? Will it grow with wear? Like, I just have questions. And I know that they can be answered verbally, but I want them to be answered through experience without me having to go through the experience. Does that make sense? So I just need to get over it and do it, knit something up with this, and hope for the best. So if you have pattern suggestions for fingering weight yarn, I don't want to hold this double. I do want to hold this by itself, single, for a lightweight tee to wear in the summertime. Let me know if you have pattern suggestions. I'd love to hear them. But yeah, that's my acquisition. And then also in that package, Brandy included a nice little sachet of soak wool wash. This is the scent Wild Mint. So I'm excited to try that. I don't think I've tried this scent before of soak. So I hope that I love it. But that's all that I have for acquisitions. Therefore, let's move to the announcements section of the podcast. 2 announcements for you. The first is, they're both kind of exciting. One, not so much. So I'll say that first, which is I'm moving to a 2 video per week schedule. Work has started back up for me. Summer is over, and that means that my time is no longer just my own. So in recognition of that, and in recognition that I'm a human with limitations and with a pain threshold, I am just going to strive for 2 videos a week. So that means you can expect a podcast on Tuesday mornings and then an additional video on Thursday mornings. So keep an eye out for that. If you were really, really in love with watching a video on Saturday, I'm so sorry, but in the future when I'm on hiatus again, I hope to go back to a 3 video per week schedule. It's just not doable for me right now. Which leads me to my second announcement. Not really, but I just have one other announcement, so I might as well be led there. And that is, thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers. That's right, folks. Over the weekend, I hit 5,000 subscribers. Now, I hesitate to tell you this, though, because I think so many people subscribed to me after I posted my Shetland recap that when I started posting podcasts again, they were like, this isn't what I signed up for, and they're out of here. So maybe once I upload this podcast, people will be reminded that they subscribed to me, but not want to watch me outside of Scotland, and then they'll unsubscribe. So maybe after this video, I will no longer have 5,000 subscribers, but I just wanted to acknowledge that it did happen. At one point, I did have 5,000 subscribers, okay? So blink and you'll miss it. But thank you so much for watching my videos, for supporting me by watching my channel and liking my videos and commenting on my videos. I read all of my comments and I appreciate every single one of you so much, except for the people who are sometimes mean to me. But if you're not mean to me, then I really appreciate you. And that's final. So that's really all I have to say for episode 26 of the podcast. Look forward to episode 27. Maybe I'll have another sweater done. Probably not, though. That was a lot to deal with. And it's just a lot. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my next upload. Last but not least, head over to Instagram and follow me at Rachel is Knitting if you don't already. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.